Hey, Credit Kristi here. Thank you so much for being part of this series with me. This is video 2 of a 4-part series talking about the psychology of money and what trips you up. Hey, welcome back, friends. I hope that you got a lot of takeaways from that first video. And in this video, what I'd like to talk about is how you pay matters. We don't really stop to think about the source or the way that we pay has an impact in our bigger finances as far as a whole picture. So let me explain to you what I mean. There is something that's called a transparency spectrum when it comes to how we pay for the things that we have in our life, whether it's recurring bills or a one-time purchase. How you pay dictates how much you spend. So at the very most transparent side of the transparency spectrum is cash. So cash, you actually have to, take it out of your wallet or your purse or your pocket, and it actually physically leaves your being. You no longer have this in your hands. And so there's actually pain affiliated with the loss of that money. Now, obviously you're buying something that's bringing you more value than what that money has in your pocket, but it's the most transparent and it's the most memorable. And so that's why when we deal in cash, it actually has a bigger impact in our finances, in our budget for the good. Now, moving up the spectrum, checks is the next one, credit cards, and then auto pay. We have the way of being able to set it and forget it. A lot of people auto draft out their rent or their mortgage payment, their car payment, those kinds of things that are recurring fixed costs. And maybe you even have an auto payment for your utilities. But what's difficult with that is right now I'm recording this video, it's the dead heat of summer. And I don't know about you, but my electric bill is way higher in August than it is in, say, February. So even though it's on auto pay, there's a lot more coming out of my operating account, which is my checking account for my utilities in the middle of August, right? So let's move through the transparency spectrum and talk about credit cards. So when we pay for something on credit cards, it's really hard to kind of categorize where that goes when we look at an entire budget. So we're paying for food, and we're paying for utilities, and we're paying for clothing, and we're paying for gifts, and we're paying for all these different things that fall into different categories inside of a budget. And then we've got this like one bill over here that we'll worry about or think about in 30 days. And that's why it's so easy to just pull out a card and swipe it, pull out a card and swipe it without putting much thought into the ability to repay it in full or what the cost of interest will wind up being. And that's why I believe we have thousands and thousands and thousands of households in this country that carry tens of thousands of dollars in credit card debt. So the average household in America right now that has a recurring balance on their credit cards, the average balance, you guys, is $9,300 in America right now. That is recurring, that's just kind of sitting there and we're paying interest on it. That's hundreds of dollars a month in interest. But we can't get out of that cycle of keeping this balance on credit cards because we're having a hard time over here figuring out where those categories go in our budget because we're just swiping a card, because it goes further away from the transparency side on that transparency spectrum. So what winds up happening, and science has proven it, is we wind up spending more on credit cards because it's kind of a forgettable moment, right? I forgot that I swiped that card. And I bet that that would be something for you to experience too. If you actually look at all of the transactions on your credit card bill, go ahead and open that up, maybe go through your transactions for the last 30 or 60 days in your app, on your phone, or if you receive a paper mailed copy, look at those transactions and see how many of those you didn't even recall swiping your credit card for, whether it was a bill or a purchase. You might go, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Because when we buy it on a credit card, it actually makes that purchase less memorable. So it may have brought you a lot of joy in that moment. It made you feel good in that moment, or you were able to pay that bill on time in that moment. But at what cost? With the interest and then that accumulating and maybe even growing balance on your credit card. So keep in mind, if you have an opportunity to pay cash or pay it on credit, always pay cash. And that's because it hurts more. There's pain involved. And although your bank balance is decreasing, it might help us stay better in line and in focus to remain inside of those boundaries that we're setting up for a budget. Hope this brought you a lot of tips. Stay tuned for video 3.